Good morning, good morning, good morning to you all. Happy Thursday, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone is in their glory today. I pray today is Thursday, and I'm not sure, but let me check on my calendar. Those work days for me. It keeps me up to date on the days of the week. Days of the week, days of the week. When I do all of that with the kiddies in the classroom. But anyway, y'all, I just want to come and talk to you this morning about this Diddy trial. This is really, oh my God, people going to need therapy. I listened to just a little of it the other day. I just listened to very little of it. Okay, the other day, and I was like, oh God, I got to get myself together. I can't get all of this stuff in my system. Just to hear some of the things that went on with behind the scenes of Hollyweird and everything. And I knew it's a whole lot more to it than what was already shared to the public. When I heard the testimony of Monique, the testimony of Wendy Williams, which I'm going to play in this video here that I'll be sharing with you. So I hope you're ready to listen to some of this. But I always knew there was something going on with Wendy Williams, like how her health started failing, how things were happening to her career, how she was publicly being scrutinized. But anyway, before I get into it, let me not forget this the Lord's Prayer. Okay? Let me not forget the Lord's Prayer. Good morning, good morning, good morning to those of you who are in the chat this morning. Good morning. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespass as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all evil. For thou you are the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. But anyway, y'all, I wanted to just talk about it because I haven't really I didn't really get too involved in it, but I think everybody is going to be taking that stand, surprise witnesses and everything. And I wouldn't even be surprised if they going to bring R. Kelly on this trial because of the stuff that's been said already about Jay-Z. So it's going down, y'all. I mean, I think it's over for how they gotta do something new and different with this music industry, the kind of music, and also some of the other things that are in Hollywood. Okay, to protect people lives, people's privacy, and some of the stuff that they do allow to be played out here, because I'm out here on the music airways and the stations and stuff. There are just some things that should not be played in certain types of songs, and there are certain things that should not be allowed in certain type of performances, and there are certain things that should not even be allowed without restricting it from, like we used to do back in the good old days. You barely got to see any nudity scenes in movies and certain kind of activities going on. And I think it's coming to that part. I think music influences people's lives, and so do Hollywood. Hollywood influences people's lives as well. So by this trial going on, even though we didn't want it to go down the way it is, but think about it, y'all. If this was really happening to a white man, would anybody really take interest in watching this trial and listening to this trial? No. The big people behind the screen that's pulling the strings that nobody ever see? No. People be like, who's this dude? Never heard of him, never saw him. So of course they have to put people out here to watch and to listen to trials like this and what's going on behind the scene of the lives of these people that are Hollywood and rappers and you name it. If they would have put a white person on here like Harvey Weinstein, I don't think people would have took as much interest watching something like a person with a name like Diddy, R. Kelly, Jay-Z. You just got to think about it, okay? Men like Diddy, R. Kelly, Jay-Z, these are the big names in the industry, okay? These are the big names in the industry. So they have to go for these kind of people to get the public involved. Because if other than that, people like Weinstein, the big people that's behind the scenes, Harvey Weinstein, and people like Epstein, and of course, nobody gonna watch trials about them. They gonna already say, "Oh yeah, they perfect." So ain't nobody. The public ain't gonna take too much interest. The young people, put it this way, the younger people that's is interested in going into Hollywood and coming into the music industry, they're not gonna take no interest in watching no old elderly old scribbled up white men going to jail for whatever kind of stuff like this. They gonna watch when they see people like Diddy and R. Kelly and names like Jay-Z. You understand what I'm saying? And Young Thug and things of those names. People pay attention. This is not just like Wendy Williams. Hi, how you doing? Country life. How are you, my love? People like myself, I never even heard of Weinstein. To be honest with you, I never even heard of these people until names like that came up when people were talking about the R. Kelly stuff. That's when I started eh, knowing who are Weinstein and Epstein and Clyde Davis is. Now, Clyde Davis' name been out there for a long time. These names like R. Kelly, like I said, Jay-Z, and P. Diddy, these celebrities who've been around for decades, these are the people that is going to draw more attention and attraction to some of the manipulation and some of the high profile crimes going on behind the industry to get some of these things dealt with as far as victims lives, all of these people all of a sudden just dying all of a sudden, like Michael Jackson, and people, things that had happened to Michael Jackson, and things that has happened to Prince, and all of a sudden these mysterious death things that's just been happening. So, and everybody's just started asking questions. So I truly believe that this whole Diddy trial is going to pull the roof off of all these people in the background who stay silent. Like when you listen to this video, I was like, wow, this is interesting. Because I do remember when Wendy Williams blew up about things about Diddy, and then all of a sudden her career was ended on the radio station she used to work for. I think Hot FM, and she used to bring all the celebrity gossip and everything. She had a platform there, and this is before it became like YouTube and all these other places like Facebook and X and Twitter and all that stuff. Wendy Williams was the queen of gossip on Hot FM. Then we had other people come on the show, on the line. Like we also seen what happened to what's his name. He used to blow up a lot of stuff too on the radio station, Kiss FM. I think it was either Kiss or whatever with um what's my friend Michael Basin. All of a sudden he's been quiet and silenced. You know what I'm saying? Then he went on his platform like on a podcast and Facebook and everything. But I was like saying, what's going on with these people? Because there was certain things and certain people they were not allowed to talk about, or else it would have destroyed their careers. And that's why they said, like Wendy said here, it's not only just about Diddy here. It's about other people. I have a file full of things that NDAs and things that were giving that I had to be silenced about, or else my career was over. All of this stuff about her health, everything about her marriage, and all this other stuff that happened to her life, because Wendy was not going to be silenced. They try to lock her up with in an old folks home. I mean, in a rehabilitation center and everything. They had her going on drugs and everything. And Wendy was like, "Look, I'd rather be silent. I'd rather be able to tell the truth and go to hell than to stay silent and go to heaven." And that's the truth because Wendy, she was blowing people up. She was spilling all the tea, you know. And I kind of miss Wendy, you know what I'm saying? Because Wendy kept it real. Wendy kept it real and she didn't lie for these people. She just told the truth. She just sat up there and told the truth. She said, this ain't even about all Diddy. This ain't about only just Diddy. It's a whole lot of people were doing they dirt behind the scene. Don't think Diddy gonna be the only one just going down. Now the thing with the Cassie, she didn't even want this stuff to blow up. What Cassie wanted to do, she wanted to keep it quiet and just deal with him on a civil level of her lawsuit. But for the feds to have to take Diddy down and to do what they had to do, since they had that video, they had to use that video. You know, they paid her and then they turned around and used it against her. You know what I'm saying? To testify against Diddy. That's what they had to do. Now she walking around with her belly swollen and everything, you know, just like the young lady did with R. Kelly. All of a sudden she got pregnant and everything else like that. And this might be helpful to R. Kelly because R. Kelly may be innocent behind, like we've been saying, R. Kelly's innocent, R. Kelly innocent. He's innocent, but then again, he was messing with those young girls. And that kind of made R. Kelly look kind of like on the it's just as bad as even though those young girls and everything, he was taking care of them and he really wasn't there to harm them or anything else like that. But just the fact that they had to get something on him as well. But there's things that's been popping up, things that's being said about Heavy D, all of a sudden his mysterious death, and how they try to take Al B. Sure out, and Al B. Sure gave his testimony, and about how Kim was scared, and her death wasn't her death ain't the way they said it is, and also things about Tupac is in the book, and how Tupac, it's a whole lot of names going down. It ain't gonna just be Diddy. And let me tell you something. Jay-Z and is not out of the clear. I'm just gonna say like that. They gonna get Jay-Z because guess who they gonna get? They gonna put R. Kelly on the stand. That's probably why they been, I don't want to say it, got him in some kind of protection program. That's what I think. But anyway, they had to make him sound as guilty as anything because the only place he was going to be protected with a trial like this is in jail. Because these people are real wicked. They got people working from all different levels. And that's what, what's her name was saying. She was like, yo, everybody's coming from all different level. Oprah, Tyler Perry, Monique got on the stage. Let me play this video for y'all. I'm pretty sure y'all already saw it. That I'm gonna be showing you is called "What's My Star Worth." They had to put what's her name in some kind of protection program for her to talk on social media, like a blog or whatever. Her career, the way her career ended, how they ruined her life. Jaguar White, Gene Deal. You know, they was like, they had to put him in a witness protection program. Even Suge Knight name was up in there. I'm like, yo, it's the whole Hollywood and the music industry. And everybody may be innocent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying just because they're going to be a part of this trial, that doesn't necessarily make them guilty, but they went silent because of the people who's behind the scene that got the big muscle that's pulling all the strings that just don't want these people to be exposed. That's been covering them up. And it's bigger than Diddy. It's bigger than Diddy. It's bigger than R. Kelly. And it's bigger than Jay-Z. It's these people that it's been going on for a long time. And now people are really, really starting to be like, okay, this is enough because not only is it harming lives in Hollywood, but you got to think about how it's influencing lives out here. Once you start cleaning up inside Hollywood and the music industry, you can start cleaning up people's lives out here in the world. So we don't have to live in such a violent, disgusting underworld. You know what I'm saying? The underworld been controlling everything. You know, the gun violence that we see, the killings that we see, the murders, like innocent lives being harmed, and the police brutality, and And all of these things all connect with Hollywood and music. Music can also demonize people. And I've been saying it. I've been saying when you listen to certain music, it would influence you into a certain lifestyle. Music is the most influential language in the world is music. If music is dark and evil, guess what? The world becomes dark and evil through music. It creeps its way in places you wouldn't believe. It creeps its way into the churches, even past what's his name, Bishop, even the bishop is in this. Bishop T.D. Jakes, how his life got ruined behind these celebrity and they lifestyle. They got to get this thing under control because it's getting on to the children. It's disgusting. All the activities that went on behind the scene. I mean, doing all this orgies and weirdness and everything. It was like Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah. That's why I say the other to deal with this stuff, you have to be very, very strong in the Lord because this stuff here will put you in a place where you be like, oh my God, but thank God I know Jesus so that it won't do too much effect in my life. But this trial is so important. I just was like, I didn't know why I didn't want to watch this trial, but something told me you better go watch this trial and get this, speak on this. Since I speak on the Lord all the time, people are influenced by what they see on TV. People are influenced by what is put out in the public on television, public broadcasting stations. I call it television, of course, PBS. And you can also say, also what we see out here on the internet. Now it's the internet. Some of the things we see on the internet that's just influencing people. I had to get away from all of those crime videos, all these crime scene videos, because it's just too much for me to watch. It's just too much. It's just, but once you get away from those things, and once we have a change of the industry, how the music is aired out in the airways, and also once we get away from some things and everything that they show in movies and in Hollywood. We could go back and enjoy watching movies and laugh and have fun and eat popcorn and go out on a date. And teenagers could enjoy being teenagers and being young and impressionable people growing up in the world. Once we could clean up all the filth and the dirt that goes on behind the scene of the lives of celebrities and how it's getting out in the world. So let's go listen to the video, y'all, and just watch and listen. Okay.
Is strongly advised the following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. In a shocking twist no one saw coming, Wendy Williams, the queen of hot topics, the one they tried to silence, has now taken the stand in federal court. After decades of rumors, suspicions, and relentless industry backlash, Wendy is finally putting it all on record. Her testimony isn't just about Diddy, it's about a pattern of protection, silence, and systemic abuse in hip-hop and entertainment. From Jay-Z to R. Kelly, from radio blackballing to NDAs, Wendy came armed with dates, quotes.
Did I say they have to use these names? They have to bring these trials on names like R. Kelly, Jay-Z, and Diddy, because they've been like the seniors of this decade of music. They've been in the music industry for decades. How these things were happening, how these young girls were being scouted out, how they had them performing certain kind of sexual favors and doing certain things at that age, how they were able to have these underage girls working as sex workers, and they were sex trafficking and drugs and everything. Even though R. Kelly didn't know that he was a part of it, but he was a part of it because that's what? He had parties. He probably went to some of these parties. I don't know if he's been to none of the parties with the behind the scene with Diddy and them. I don't think he was that deep into it. But, and being that he knew the Lord and had a strong, faith in God, and he stayed so, religious, sort of kind of like keep his faith in the Lord and everything. That's probably what kept him kind of protected. And that's what's keeping him protected now, because I truly believe they are going to use R. Kelly in this trial. Watch and wait.
And chilling recollections. This wasn't a tabloid segment. This was a bombshell deposition, under oath, with everyone listening. What she said about Diddy, Jay-Z, and their twisted connection. It could tear down an entire industry. Buckle up, because Wendy Williams just turned the courtroom into her purple chair. When Wendy Williams entered the courtroom, it didn't feel like a celebrity appearance. It felt like the arrival of someone who had been buried alive and clawed her way out just to finally tell the truth. She wasn't here for headlines. She wasn't here for drama. She was here because, for years, the media tried to silence her with lawsuit, threats, blackballing, and mockery. And now,
Yep.
all
They did
those
it to R.
warnings,
Kelly.
all those rumors she put out on her old radio show were part of a federal investigation. She sat down, looked directly at the jury, and adjusted her microphone with a calm but deliberate pace. I was never messy. I was never bitter. I was never lying. I was early. Wendy wasted no time reminding the court why she was there, to testify under oath about the behaviors, threats, cover-ups, and patterns she had long accused Sean Diddy Combs of orchestrating. When I first
You sure
started
did.
talking about Diddy, she said, I wasn't trying to tear him down. I was trying to wake people up. The courtroom watched as she placed a stack of papers in front of her, printouts of old show transcripts, emails from executives, and a timeline of everything Diddy allegedly did to shut her down. She started in the early 2000s. He was protected. Everybody knew it. You couldn't talk about Puff without a phone call coming in an hour later. She detailed moments where station managers warned her, advertised.
And another thing with this Aaliyah stuff, her death was mysterious. Lisa Lopes, all of these celebrities, the way they died, it was just too obvious that these people didn't die by no accident. It wasn't an accident. Heavy D, that wasn't an accident. Prince was a vegan. Prince did how he was found with all of this so-called whatever in his system and stuff. Prince was very religious, whether you knew it or not. He had a very strong faith in the Lord as well, sort of, kind of. And also Prince, also, I'm sorry, was trying to blow them up and talk about them, and so was Michael Jackson, and how they silenced them and they killed them, and it wasn't no accident. Michael didn't die from. This is a whole list of people how they died in Hollywood and in the music industry. How they it's just I told you, it's much more deeper than we think, and this is a 2-month trial, so a lot of witnesses. They gonna investigate this whole thing with Hollyweird and the music industry.
Pulled out of her show, and threats were made in subtle but unmistakable ways. You're doing too much, Wendy, they'd say. You're gonna get hurt, Wendy. She described being chased, quite literally, out of her radio station by a girl group allegedly sent by Diddy himself. Total. I
I
said they
remember
were
Total.
broke, and within
I
hours.
always wonder whatever happened to the group Total. I still got their CD here and everything. I always wonder whatever happened, how these people end up broken, their careers ended the way they did. I always was curious about that.
They were waiting for me outside my building. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. Wendy described her career like it was a war zone. Every time I exposed something about Diddy, from his parties to the way he treated his artists, something in my world would collapse. A sponsor, a syndication deal, a network invite, gone. But she refused.
And I'm gonna say they may not get everybody, but they gonna get them. They gonna get enough to make sure that they could get some things taken care of in our industry with music and Hollywood. Okay?
Used to back down. You can blackball me, you can threaten me, but you can't erase me. And now I'm under oath, so I hope they're listening, because I'm not stopping until the truth is loud enough to shut their machine down. When the prosecution asked Wendy about the cult,
They are taking down the mob, y'all. That's what it is. It's the mob. The mob is behind all of this. And you be surprised who names are gonna be popping up in here. Is and how they had these people so afraid to destroy their careers and everything. They trying to do, remember, if you remember this election with Trump, he was talking of things like they wanted to arrest Trump, but we gonna find out Prince Charles was at these parties too. Come on, it's a whole lot of people going down now. People with money invested in all of this kind of crime and doing these kind of things. The devil, I told you, the devil, his time is almost up. His time is almost up. Let's go.
Surrounding Diddy, she pivoted towards someone else she had long warned the public about, Jay-Z, and her tone sharpened. You can't talk about what Diddy did without talking about the people who stood next to him, smiled with him, while the abuse was happening. That includes Jay-Z. Wendy's eyes scanned the jury.
It's just like anybody's job. People don't want to work in fear and work like that. That's not living. When you see things like this going on and you can't talk about it, or else you're going to be threatened, your life is going to be put in exposure or whatever, that needs to stop. People want to go to work, they want to take care of their life, they want to take care of their family life. You don't need a whole lot of money just to enjoy the beautiful things in life. And the most important thing is just living, just being able to breathe and to live, and not being filled living in fear like this, because this is horrible what went on behind the scene of these celebrities' lives.
Before she leaned in, y'all remember Foxy Brown? She was 15. Jay-Z was 27, and he was everywhere with her. She pulled out lyrics from Foxy's debut album.
And that's another thing. Dating these little young girls, they just coming out of the womb, sort of. They don't have no life experience, and they life lived this kind of way, and they glamorize it, and they promote it in movies, and they promote it in music and everything. You hear all these gangster rap. Look at all of these people running around with tattoos all over their body and on their face, and just disgusting. No true love is in these people's lives. These people are like demonic. It's demonic.
Songs Jay-Z reportedly wrote. Ain't no nump like the one I got. No one can fuck me better.
It's like Sodom and Gomorrah. That's what I'm going to call it. This is Sodom and Gomorrah, y'all.
She read aloud, deliberately. The courtroom recoiled. You tell me, she continued. Why was a grown man writing those lyrics for a child? She continued with details only someone from the industry could know. Rumors of Jay picking Foxy up from high school, lavish gifts, shopping
And notice that most of R. Kelly songs was never this explicit. His stories were love stories, and his music was more. And I was just talking to my older sister the other day, and she said, the thing with R. Kelly is that he should have known better to be with them young girls. He already been given a warning at the first trial when he was set up. He should have just left it alone, but he was still around it. So that kind of like made him a part of it when he went on trial with all of this porn and everything with this young girl. So that made R. Kelly look just as guilty as the rest of them looked. But even though he wasn't doing it, he wasn't the one that was running this industry, doing the things. He was more like the music writer, and certain songs and everything that he wrote, like very sexual and explicit, made him seem like he was a sex demon. But he was not a sex demon, because most of the time R. Kelly wanted to write music more of love and more of peace and stuff, and that to them was not for the devil. They wanted him to do some dirty stuff. They wanted his music to be really dirty, and gave him a lot of money to do it, And even though he even spoke on some of the things in his songs, like I never knew this music would be my struggle, He talked about it in his songs.
And hair appointments funded by a man almost twice her age. This wasn't a label signing. This was grooming. Then Wendy dropped something even darker, an alleged tape. There was a rumor for years that a tape existed. Jay-Z, Foxy, and Jamie Foxx. You never heard about it again? Why? Because suddenly, Foxy's home was burglarized. The tape, gone. She let the words hang in the air. Coincidence? I think not. Wendy said she was fired from her top-rated radio show shortly after suggesting that Jay-Z's relationships with underage girls needed to be investigated. They called me toxic, but now you're seeing that everything I asked was worth asking. The prosecution then asked if she had any concrete evidence. Wendy nodded. Email, call log, producers who backed out of my show when I brought up Jay's name. She told the court that Jay-Z's team made quiet calls to industry insiders to blacklist anyone who spoke about Foxy. They turned me into the villain, she said, just for asking what any decent person should have asked. Then she turned to the jury. You think I lost sponsors for being messy? Number, I lost sponsors because I was right, and they couldn't let that spread. Next came what Wendy called the part nobody wanted to believe, the part that had her labeled as a liar, a loudmouth, and worse. She told the court, I was the first to say it. Those weren't parties. They were operations. She was referring to the infamous freak-offs, a term now central to the federal indictment against Diddy. Wendy said she first heard whispers about these events in the late 90s, when Bad Boy was at its peak. Phones were taken at the door. Guests signed NDAs. There were candle escorts, cameras. People were assigned to rooms. This wasn't a house party. It was a ritual. She referenced Karen Superhead Steffens, who told Wendy on air that Diddy invited her to one of these parties and asked for male involvement. Superhead didn't lie. She described everything. Diddy's paranoia, his drugs, the strange setups.
Look at that picture of Aaliyah in that picture. Look at the picture, y'all. Look at the picture.
Said he was afraid she'd expose him. Wendy leaned in again, and I made sure people heard that interview. I played it again and again because the truth was too heavy to let it pass. She described similar stories she'd heard from other guests, men and women, who had been to Diddy's parties and came back shaken. They didn't just party. They were told what to do, what to wear, who to touch, what room to go in. Wendy testified that she had personally spoken with 3 individuals who described IV bags being used to recover from the party, just as the court indictment now details. They said there were medical assistants on standby. This was not socializing. This was organized depravity. She produced a list, pseudonyms only, of people who'd given her their testimonies in private. The court was stunned. One by one, these events matched the very patterns described by Cassie Ventura, Gene Deal, and other witnesses in the case. Finally, Wendy said something that hit everyone hard. The baby oil? I said it on air as a joke, but it wasn't funny. They really found over 1,000 bottles, just like I said. You know why I knew? Because people told me, and I was the only one willing to say it. She sat back in the chair, composed, and looked over at Diddy. All these years later, and we're finally here. Now it's not gossip, it's evidence. As the courtroom grew more silent, Wendy Williams shifted focus to someone else she had been defending for years, Cassie Ventura. I said it back then, she declared, eyes never leaving the jury. Y'all were mesmerized by the diamonds, the music videos, the red carpets, but I saw a scared girl. I saw imbalance, and I said it on the air. Something about that relationship was off. That is so true, because young people, they are so influenced by the lifestyle of the rich and famous, and they want to be rich and famous, so they will do anything to have a Gucci bag, to have the gold chains, to have the ice on them, and look at what they did to Little Kim. I can't wait till they bring her out to tell her story about what she had to go through. That young girl, Little Kim, was very young when she was in this industry. She couldn't have been no more than 15, 16 years old, maybe even younger than that. Wendy testified that she had tried to warn her listeners as early as 2008 about the obsessive control Diddy allegedly had over Cassie. She was 19. He was pushing 40. That's not love. That's leverage. Wendy explained how the mogul's lifestyle, jets, private security, industry pull, made it nearly impossible for Cassie to leave. I said it then, and I'll say it now. She didn't need a boyfriend. She needed a bodyguard. She reminded the courtroom of a clip she played on her show years ago, where Cassie looked down during an interview and flinched when Diddy raised his voice. People called it nerves. I called it trauma, but nobody listened. The prosecution then entered into evidence a timeline of Wendy's broadcasts that paralleled Cassie's legal claims. I was told Diddy had access to her phones, that he'd show up at hotels unannounced, that he'd get staff to unlock her doors. She paused. And when I said that out loud, my show sponsors pulled the plug. Wendy then referenced a 2018 incident, the one where Cassie reportedly ended the relationship after Diddy allegedly forced his way into her home. That's not the first time he showed up uninvited, Wendy testified. People don't understand. When a mogul wants control, they don't need permission. They make the world rearrange itself for them. She gave the court a chilling breakdown of how these mogul dynamics play out: grooming, isolating, leveraging industry influence, and forcing the illusion of luxury as a means of obedience. He didn't just love Cassie, he owned her, and when she broke the chain, she became dangerous. Wendy ended this part of her testimony by saying, "Everything in that lawsuit, I saw the sign. I said it publicly, and now she's finally being heard. But at what cost?" Wendy adjusted her mic again. Her voice didn't tremble, but it slowed. "You don't get to talk about men like Diddy and walk away clean. I knew that, but I didn't realize how deep it would go until it happened." She testified that in 2004, at the peak of her...
Now we understand why all these people did not come to defend R. Kelly during the trial, because their stuff was even dirtier. They was in on it.
radio dominance, she received a message from a record label executive: "Stop talking about Puff, or else." Wendy didn't flinch. She kept going. The very next week, she was pulled from her afternoon time slot. "They didn't even pretend it wasn't about him," she said. "It was punishment." Wendy revealed she'd heard from multiple sources that Diddy had made phone calls, strategic ones, she said, to label heads, promoters, and radio networks, warning them to distance themselves from Wendy. She recalled one program director telling her bluntly, "You went too far. You poked the wrong bear." She spoke about how she was almost attacked in front of her own studio by the girl group Total after she called them washed up and broke on air. "And you think they just showed up randomly? Number they were sent?" Wendy recounted the moment in vivid detail. Fans pressed to the glass of the radio station lobby, her boyfriend at the time waiting in a car, her intern panicking. That wasn't just a confrontation. That was a message. "We can get to you." She then described how she was disinvited from BET events, denied media passes, and lost advertising deals. "It was all coordinated. Diddy didn't just want to stop me. He wanted to erase me." She brought out printed emails from PR firms representing Bad Boy at the time, each one distancing themselves from her platform. One email read, "Per client instruction, we will no longer be booking talent on Wendy Williams' show." "That client? Sean Combs," Wendy said, holding up the page. "I wasn't the first to be blackballed," she added, "but I was one of the few who stayed loud about it." She turned to the jury again. "That's what he does. If you speak, you lose everything. Your mic, your money, your name. But I didn't fold. I talked through the silence. And here I am." Wendy sat still for a moment before recounting a time that felt almost surreal in hindsight. "We come from a very homosexual era of hip-hop," she began, quoting her own past words. "That wasn't shade, that was truth. And for saying it, I was burned at the stake." She explained how in the early 2000s, there was a quiet but undeniable effort to protect certain stars by shaming those who questioned them. "I had Charlemagne on the air with me, and even back then, we knew what not to say if we wanted to stay employed, but I said it anyway." She brought up her 2004 book, The Wendy Williams Experience, which was full of coded references and veiled warnings about Diddy, Jay-Z, and their after-dark lifestyles. People called it gossip, but now the government calls it evidence. Wendy then recounted a 2009 interview she did with former Bad Boy artist Mark Curry, who had just written Dancing with the Devil. "He called Diddy the shadow that ruins people." I agreed. And suddenly, that interview disappeared
I always wonder what happened to Mark Curry.
from the radio station's...
Andre Harrell. And you know what? With Uptown Records, Andre Harrell, I believe the person he was involved with in a romantic, sexual, whatever relationship, I believe it was with Clyde Davis. And that's how Diddy was groomed into the business with Uptown Records, and Bad Boys came from there because he used to work for Uptown and everything. And I think he wanted to get more of a bigger name in the industry. So Andre Harrell probably was pushed aside after a while, and it became Clyde Davis and Diddy. All of a sudden now he don't remember Diddy. He's supposed to be going through some senile whatever episode of his life. But that devil ain't going down until all of this stuff is going to be blown off the top. Whitney Houston and her daughter. and the boyfriend and the boyfriend and Bobby. Oh my God, it's just so much.
Archives. She told the court that every time she tried to feature someone critical of the industry, Superhead, Gene Deal, Jaguar Wright, she got pushback, email threats, even FCC complaints. They tried to shut me down through every angle they could. Then she dropped something that caught the court's attention. There was a list, not written down, but everyone in the industry knew it. A list of people you couldn't talk about. And when I broke that rule, I paid. She explained that her Hot Topics segments were constantly being flagged for review, that show producers were being
Just like how Gil King had R. Kelly. R. Kelly had to come out in public and be humiliated the way he had to just to make his statement then on his trial, because notice they didn't even let R. Kelly talk. They kept him masked. They even kept his trial closed to the public. They got people out there, free Diddy with black t-shirts on, getting paid $20 an hour, standing out there in t-shirts talking about free Diddy. That they paying people to do this sort of kind of movement and not knowing that they taking people down. Okay, they could be out there at them t-shirts, free Diddy, all they want to, because these people don't want to get exposed. And they want to silence people. They want to keep people quiet. But it's it's going down, y'all.
threatened by talent reps, and that executives warned her off the record to back off. They said I was going to mess it all up for them, for the station, for myself. She paused. But now it's all messed up anyway, because the truth is out. Wendy's voice lowered as she finished this part. This trial is not the beginning. It's the end of a cover-up, and I want the jury to know I've been sounding this alarm for 20 years.
You hear what I'm saying? It's an end of a cover-up, y'all. It's an end of a cover-up of what went on in the world of the hip-hop culture, and also behind the scenes in the world of the movies and everything else like that, Hollyweird, and all these platforms like Gayle King, Oprah Winfrey, and the ones you don't hear about no more and everything. These people and stuff like that just wasn't gonna get down and dirty like that. So these shows were canceled, or all of a sudden they sickly. They don't live in the country. They've been silenced. Same thing happened with what's his name from the group? Ooh, oh my God, how could I forget his name? Oh my God, how could I forget his name? But anyway, it'll come back to me.
Just finally heard it. As Wendy looked back at the courtroom, her tone shifted again. Sharper now, more precise. You think this is just about Diddy? You're wrong, she said, locking eyes with the jury. This is about
Russell Simmons. That's who I was thinking about. Russell Simmons. Remember his wife and everything after her modeling career? She was part of these sex parties and everything else like that. And he's in there somewhere too. Russell Simmons and Kamora Lee. That's another one. Okay, remember they were the power couple back then?
the ecosystem that protected him, and that includes names you were never supposed to hear in a courtroom. Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey. A collective stillness fell over the courtroom. The prosecution asked her to explain, and she did, with brutal clarity.
Yeah, notice that Tyler Perry used to do when he first started out. Remember when he was just trying to find, do his work and performing in the arts, his plays, shows, and everything, which was very, very epic. I mean, I loved all his play shows, his plays better than I do the movies, because the movies started to get a little dark, But his plays was on the money. The Medea plays and stuff, when he was doing tours like that. And then when he got into the Hollywood scene of all of that, notice how Tyler Perry, something about him was changing. He wasn't so much in touch as much as he should be with the Lord. And then on top of that, how he was polluting the gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ stuff is never about this world. It's always about what goes on in our spirit and in the deepest loving places of our heart. That people are doing things not free, but being forced to do it by the devil. Like it's the scripture in the Bible when the devil is talking to Christ and he's telling Christ and everything that he should, jump down and do all of these other things and he will give him all the riches of the world. And Christ is like denying, like, no, I don't want no part of that or whatever. You know how the devil kept trying to tempt Christ to do certain things, but Christ wouldn't do it. Listen to what I'm saying. It's just like how these people got involved in Hollywood. Like certain things they were pushed to do, or else it would have cost them to be blackballed in their career if they didn't. That's how the devil works. When they want you to do down and dirty stuff that's just against your will. But let's move on.
There's a list in Hollywood, not one you'll ever see, not one you'll ever hold, but it's real. It's the list of people you do not cross. And if you do, you disappear. Wendy recounted the app.
Like for instance, people perform in certain gay scenes. If you're not gay and you don't really support that lifestyle and you really try to live a Christian life, it's very hard for you to do a scene like that because that's something that is biblically against God's nature. So a lot of celebrities have been pushed to play certain roles to perform, and if they didn't perform these roles and everything, their careers became blackballed because they didn't want to do gay scenes. Some of them didn't even want to do interracial couple scenes. They wouldn't want to do a scene with a woman that is tell a love story with a white woman, like a black man and a white woman, or a black woman with a white man kind of love story that some people just is against their nature to do, and they were forced to do it or else they didn't have a career.
Aftermath of her infamous radio segments when she exposed not only Diddy's parties and manipulation, but also called out how Tyler Perry allegedly blackballed her behind closed doors. I had sources, real ones, producer, agents, and they told me flat out, Wendy, your name is being passed around. They don't want you touching certain topics. You're being labeled unstable. She explained that after her fallout with the Precious Team, a film both Perry and Oprah were heavily involved in, her access in the industry collapsed. I went from getting invites to premieres to being wiped off the guest list. One executive told me, Oprah's people don't want you near her anymore. That's power, and that power was used to protect people like Diddy. Then came a chilling story. Wendy testified that she confided in Oprah once, privately, about her own past trauma with abuse. She told me she respected me, that she'd never exploit that story. And then, next thing I know, my abuser was on her show, being interviewed, while I was being blackballed. She continued, that wasn't just betrayal, that was retaliation. The jury looked stunned as Wendy...
Remember how we used to love to watch Oprah? They sucked us in, they groomed us in it. I used to love watching 4 o'clock in Eastern Standard Time, the Oprah Winfrey Show. When it used to come on, had controversial topics, like things about talk about certain things that happen, tragedy or things. I mean, her platform was so real back then. And then all of a sudden it started changing and she started wanting to please more of her, so-called audience of people of the rich and famous. She started doing platforms such as that. I mean, she did it every now and then, but most of her topics she used to talk about like um, racial things that would happen, police brutality. Her shows used to be so on point about the KKK and about people that lived in places that did some weird stuff, family issues or whatever. Then all of a sudden it started changing to something that wasn't so real anymore. I remember when she was a heavy set, dark skinned black woman. And then all of a sudden her stories became very like more pleasing to a certain different type of audience, not about real things anymore. Like really the people that was out here dealing with certain real struggles. And just like when they did that to R. Kelly, Michael Jackson, all of these setups with Michael Jackson and R. Kelly and how they started attacking Bill Cosby. Well, Bill Cosby wanted to be the owner of NBC or something like that, and then all of a sudden he was blackballed in a way. And then R. Kelly wanted to own the rights of his own music and everything. But after this, R. Kelly just might get what his heart has always desired, to have his own music and have the rights over his own music and everything. Because R. Kelly, I don't think ever came into this business to be the way they try to portray him at the trial. I think he was just a victim himself. He was a victim. He was silenced. He was scrutinized, and he was manipulated, and they took advantage of him about his education, about the life he came from the project. So I guess they felt they owned his life, but R. Kelly was like, "No, God owns this life, and God is the one who owns my music too, and it's gonna happen." So let's be patient, and I think he will probably run the industry a whole lot better because of him having a love and a connection with God. Get all of this dirty, filthy, disgusting stuff away from the world and out of out of the industry. God kept him around for a reason, and God had to hide him away from what's going on right now.
Made it
Let's
there. They
let's think
smiled with him.
positive.
They took pictures. They stood beside Diddy while the rest of us were getting crushed for speaking out. And I know why. Because they needed him for deals, for reach, for silence. She then revealed an email accidentally forwarded to her.
Good morning, everyone that's in the chat. Can you please hit the like button or let me know you here? I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
From a PR firm handling crisis communication for both Perry's studio and a bad boy affiliated brand. The subject line, Managing Optics, Wendy, Puff, Tyler. That was all it said, but that was all she needed. Wendy stared straight ahead. These aren't just isolated stars. They're a machine that feeds on silence and destroys anyone who dares pull the curtain back. By now, the courtroom had grown tense with every word Wendy delivered. Then came a moment that prosecutors later called a turning point. Wendy pulled out a thick file folder. This, she said, tapping the cover, is a collection of NDA, email threads, and internal memos that were never supposed to see the light of day. She clarified that she obtained them not through hacking, but from industry friends who had long since left the game. They were tired of watching women disappear, tired of seeing truth labeled gossip. Wendy began reading from an NDA dated 2007. The name redacted. The language? Ominous. Subject agrees not to disclose any private gatherings, recordings, or interactions with Sean Combs, his guests, or associates. Violation of this agreement may result in financial penalties and public retaliation. She slammed the paper down. Public retaliation. That's how deep it went. Next, she read an internal email from a luxury hotel chain. We have prepared the presidential suite with all requested amenities, including extra linens, candlelight lighting, and discretion measures. Mr. Combs's assistant will arrive for setup prior to guest entry. The date on that email? 2015. Cassie was still with Diddy. You think this was just celebrity partying? Wendy asked. Number, this was a system. This was planned, funded, scheduled, and cleaned up afterward. She revealed that she had evidence of payments made to publicists, talent managers, even bloggers, all to manage the narrative. One email instructed a writer to avoid.
Didn't I say that? They got their own bloggers here on the platforms and everything. Like some of these bloggers and everything is even down with some of this stuff because they getting paid money to just promote certain kind of stuff. Like if you can't talk about certain things and then without making it gossip. Like Tasha K. Her platform was set up by these celebrities. She's getting paid a whole lot of money to do. If she know that half of the stuff that was said about R. Kelly wasn't true stuff, and they had this BOP officer that got into R. Kelly's files and everything and put all of that stuff out there in the public. And remember, he was trying to fight against that stuff and how difficult that R. Kelly, been saying about his innocence and everything, and some things that he was just like, I can't believe they doing this to me or whatever. So they had people set up in all different places to try to destroy these celebrities from things getting out. Like Whitney said, her health, her marriage, things that was threatening her life, her children, her family. This is some real mobster, dark and evil stuff. This is like the real underworld, y'all. The real underworld is being exposed. Hollyweird in the music industry, and always felt there was something wrong why these women that stay in these relationships with this kind of being abused like this. But they couldn't get away. They showed the video of when Sean said that Cassie was leaving from out of that hotel in that suite, and how she was dragged and kicked and punched to the ground, and she even tried, and she's she testified that that happened when she was finished doing um involved in some kind of sex capade with Sean Puffy Combs, and she was leaving to go home and rest because she was tired. And he didn't want her to leave. He dragged her, he punched her, he kicked her, he stomped her. And I was like, wow, because they showed 15 more minutes of it. And then I didn't see, remember when the security, the guy that's supposed to be security in the building, he was paid off. So he wouldn't tell about what happened. And this is how they kept it quiet, because they had people to pay, people to keep it quiet, to make sure that nobody gets this stuff gets out to anybody about what's going on here behind the scene of how they was having that sex. You seen him running out with a towel, and then there was another man that was also in the video. I seen another man that was walking around too with a towel on. So she was leaving to go home and get rest, but she couldn't leave. She couldn't leave.
Avoid any reference to recent rumors and instead push an article on Diddy's philanthropic work. Then came a photo, one that prosecutors presented to the jury. Diddy, Tyler Perry, and a media consultant known for her crisis sweep services.
Always wondered about Tyler Perry. He don't have no wife. He's just a single man, and he making all this money, and he had supposedly had children with some young girls or whatever like that. But this ain't we'll wait and see. The trial is 2 months, y'all. It ain't been a month yet. We got a whole nother month to go in June, so it's gonna really turn up.
All standing together at a 2019 gala. They were smiling, Wendy said, smiling while women were getting paid to shut up and others were getting destroyed for not signing. She told the court that she, too, was offered an NDA. They wanted to shut me up, said I could have a syndicated TV deal if I agreed to move on from the topics I was covering. I said no, and I paid the price. The jury was silent as Wendy concluded the silence they bought cost others their freedom, their peace, their truth, and now it's all unraveling, one NDA at a time. As Wendy Williams reached the final portion of her testimony, she didn't break, she didn't cry, she simply sat with the weight of 2 decades of warning the world and being ignored. You see Diddy on trial, she said, her voice calm and controlled, but I see something much bigger. This isn't just about what he did, it's about who let him do it. She gestured to the defense table. You see one man, but behind him is a legacy of silence, a tower built on fear, on NDAS, on power plays and party invitations and billion-dollar handshakes. Then she turned directly to the jury, and every time someone tried to speak, that tower crushed them. She reminded the court that while Diddy was the one charged, others, Jay-Z, Perry, Oprah, the labels, the handlers, had sat quietly for years, some even watching the abuse happen firsthand. They shook his hand, they took his checks, and they made sure anyone who asked questions was pushed out the door. Wendy concluded her testimony with the same voice that made her radio show famous, commanding, raw, and unfiltered. I was called bitter, I was called crazy, but I was right, and I would rather be right in hell than be silent in heaven. She looked toward Diddy, who had remained mostly stoic through her testimony. You thought I was gone, you thought your power was enough, but now you sit where the truth finally caught up to you, and I hope it's loud. Before stepping down, Wendy turned once more toward the gallery. This trial is not the end. It's the beginning of people finally naming names, of the walls cracking, and of the whole tower one day falling down. And just like that, she walked out, not as a talk show host, not as a gossip queen, but as a witness whose voice could no longer be denied.
Well, at least we got the truth from Wendy. Sorry, y'all. I'm sorry this had to happen, y'all. That this is how my video is, but I should go. She said I should go. What you call it in my video?
Discretion is strongly advised.
Look, I'm not gonna do another video with y'all. I just need to get off that screen because I gotta get myself together because I got people coming. We going tomorrow out to stay at the hotels for the wedding, my sister's wedding. So it's a lot of things going to be busy about. So I'm not going to stay too long. I just wanted to just share this part with y'all, this moment with y'all. I like the way things were said, like Wendy Williams. God kept her alive. We thought Wendy, because nobody heard. All of a sudden, her show was canceled and da 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 da. And Wendy, she had her audience on fire. You know what I'm saying? And she said it wasn't even gossip. This was the truth being spoken, but in a way where it was kind of clean. It was a clean kind of way. And look what they did to Wendy Williams. And I pray to God that everybody get whatever the devil stole from them, get their life back and be living their life again in the world as humans and treated as human beings, treated with some kind of level of respect. Don't have to live under these dirty, cruel, evil, wicked, demonic things that was happening behind their careers. I'm just like, oh my God, you need therapy after you listen to all of this, because it's bringing me some kind of faith and some hope that things will get better in the world after all of this stuff being exposed, and it's going to be some more people coming down. It ain't going to just be Diddy. It ain't going to just be Jay-Z. But it's some really high profile people you won't believe. That's why they just still, I'm sorry, this is why it's going to be such a long trial. So get ready for it. So with that being said, everybody, God bless you and have a wonderful, wonderful day. And if God's willing, I'll be back with y'all next week. Take care. Peace. Please hit the like button as you enter in and go out, and you can replay the video. Please hit the like button. I'd like to hear from you too in the comment section. This is your first time to the KC McDaniel channel. Like,